Were you drafted or did you join?
I joined.
Okay, what year did you join in?
Look on that plaque, bottom right.
Okay.
I think I was 18.
Yep. July 13th, 44. Looks like.
No, I enlisted much before that.
Okay. Date of entry, 1943.
Yeah, that'd be right.
February 23rd, 1943.
Yeah, February 3rd.
Okay.
I enlisted
Where'd you go to basic at?
in Texas, Oklahoma, and Tennessee.
Wow, they moved you around.
Yes.
Were you infantry then?
No, I was artillery.
Okay.
I was a heavy machine gunner, 50 caliber, all that time.
When you finished your basic training, then where'd you go? Remember?
Well, we went on maneuvers in Tennessee in the winter, dead of the winter.
Okay. At what point did you go overseas then? A couple of years later.
Pardon?
When did you go overseas and where'd you go?
July 1st, must have been July 1st, 1943, in a convoy to England. To Scotland.
Oh, okay. And then what happened next?
Well, we put in some time in England and we went across the channel about
You went across the channel to invade or what?
No, it was the invasion took place June 6, 1944,
Right.
and we didn't go over there till I believe it was July.
Okay. And you went to where again? Where'd you go? From England to where?
To the coast of France.
And how'd you get ashore?
Well, we had heavy guns, artillery,
Oh.
big cannon, so we went ashore in an LST. That is the ship that can let the forward part of the ship down on the shore, and
Right.
you know about that. And,
Yep.
and the first attempt at landing, the captain pushed it ashore in a large bomb hole, so we couldn't unload. We had to wait for the tide to change.
So once you got unloaded then in France, then where did your outfit go?
Right up the coast, because there was fighting right there. We could hear the fighting from the ship, and we run into the Nazi forces within miles of the coast.
Wow. Nazi infantry group, artillery group, or tank group?
It was Nazi infantry and heavy guns.
So you brought your artillery guns, and then did you started return fire then from?
Oh yes, we we returned so much fire. We took them over, and shut them down, and killed half of them, or maybe most of them.
So then,
Because that was very, very queer, and I never ever heard of a Nazi horse-drawn artillery. And I believe that's the only horse-drawn artillery they had. They commandeered French horses. Well, they'd be no match for the
mechanized travel.
mechanized travel that the United States had.
So then you started to move inland.
Yes.
Did you remember where you went?
Well, I don't have my diary here.
Oh, okay.
We went in many places in France and fired, told us how many rounds of artillery.
Okay.
It was many places in France.
Now, your nephew said you were involved in the Battle of the Bulge.
Oh yes,
How long did that last?
about a month. I froze my right foot, crippled me up, giving me hell yet today.
They didn't have to amputate then, right?
No,
Okay, but still giving you a problem because of froze.
but I was worried about the Southerners. We had Southerners in the outfit from Georgia.
No.
And a lot of them didn't know how to handle themselves in the cold, cold weather. And many of them lost toes and even feet and legs in that battle. It was 30, 40 degrees below zero. And you couldn't dig a foxhole. The ground was frozen
Right.
3 foot deep. And the only way you could get a foxhole is if a heavy German shell landed and broke the ice. Then you could finish it from there, you know.
Yep. Okay. Now, the Battle of the Bulge. You stayed there until it was won.
Yes.
And what was the winning? What was the winning factor that made the Battle of the Bulge go our way? Just everything at once.
No, it was a tough. There was so many hundreds of thousands of American soldiers in there. It took a long time to conquer the Nazis that were there. And you know why it was named the Battle of the Bulge?
No, don't know.
Well, there was fortifications from the North Sea all the way to Switzerland, and Germany made the last stand and pushed the forces in, thinking they could get to the port of on Belgium somewhere.
Okay.
And cut off supplies. And it was a bulge into the lines. It was really the Battle of Ardennes
Okay.
in the Ardennes Mountains. And we never got our overshoes till February. So you can imagine us stumping around in the cold with just our army boots.
Yeah.
Oh, those overshoes would have made a very big difference. I probably wouldn't have froze my feet if we had overshoes.
So when the Battle of the Bulge was over, where did you go next?
We went on to the little country of Alsace-Lorraine, and then into the small country of Luxembourg,
Oh yeah.
and then into Belgium, fighting all the way.
So you didn't get hit by anything. You didn't get any shrapnel in you, or
I got a few small pieces
sure.
strapped to my hand, but it didn't amount to a darn.
No.
I was lucky, but I said to myself, I'll never outlive this war. But I did.
So
And you know, the enemy goes after the machine gun first.
Yep.
So I was put out in front of the big guns to protect the big guns many times. And I don't know how I lived through that.
That was a 50 caliber or 30 caliber?
Heavy machine gun, 50 caliber.
Oh, a big one. Okay. Wow. Where were you when the war came to an end?
Just outside of Prague, Czechoslovakia, May 8th, 1945.
How did you know the war was over? What, your company commander tell you, or?
Yes. Yes, it was well known as soon as it happened. The Germans signed the surrender. So we went through 7 countries.
What did you do then? What did your outfit do when the war was over? Did you come back right away, or did you stay there for a while?
Oh, we withdrew to Germany and became a part of the Oh,
Occupation?
yeah, the occupation troops.
What did they have you doing?
Oh, collecting the guns that the Nazis had and
Okay.
tearing down some of their
Insignias?
buildings they put up, to cutting, chopping down the Nazi
Swastika?
swastika, yeah.
Yeah.
And I remember during that time a colonel came from the United States that was being trained for the occupation of the countries there. And he was talking to our colonel, and he said, "Your men are not treating these German citizens as people. They're human. None of them were human. We'd push them off the sidewalk if they got in the way." And our colonel said, "Well, if you went through the 11 months of war as they have, you'd be even doing more towards the German civilians, because they lied and said they did not know about the burning of the Jews."
Did you ever go into any concentration camps?
No, we had never got near one.
Okay.
Well, you see, at one time they was trying to empty some of the camps and march them away, but they couldn't do it fast enough. So the Jews were so sick they died along the way, and we ran into a lot of them that couldn't make it, and the Germans just hit them in the head or shot them right there and kept on going.
And then how long were you there as part of the occupation force before you went home?
It must have been at least 6 months.
Did you have to do anything else as part of the occupation force? Did you have to?
Pardon?
Did you have to do anything else as a part of the occupation force?
No. Just keep the Nazis in line and tear down some of their Nazi regals and the Nazi emblems, often buildings and this and that. The swastika.
Right. Now, when you went home, did your whole outfit go home, or you just piecemeal?
Most of them, but some of them stayed for the occupation longer. I don't know how many or who. It probably wasn't too many, because most of the boys wanted to go home.
Now, when you came back home, did you come to New York?
No.
Okay.
We went over from Boston in a 40-ship convoy.
To Boston?
From Boston.
Yeah, when you came back from Europe.
When we came back, we went to southern France and left from the port of Marseille. Didn't need a convoy then, a single ship.
Right.
And went back to Boston.
Okay. And then from Boston you took a train to where?
Train to a military site just east of Minneapolis. Except myself and other men from the Midwest, and I was given our discharge papers there and money to go home.
What do you think would have happened if the Nazis would have won the war? Terrible. You said there was a game plan. The Nazis were going to come up through Mexico?
Yes.
How'd you happen to know about it?
Well, it was published early in the war.
Okay.
And the Japanese up through Alaska, and they did take a couple islands in Alaska, or in those islands that go near the continent of Russia.
So
The United States put a strong force up there in 1942 and killed them all.
Where were the Germans going to come up? Through Mexico or Canada or what?
Mexico.
They launched their way. I asked young people, what do you think would have happened today? And they can't even imagine it. Young people have to know how bad that was.
You mean if they did invade and conquer the United States?
Yep.
We'd be under Nazi rule and Japanese rule and being pilfered and suffered all our lives.
Yep.
And probably could never recover.
Nope, there wouldn't be a country big enough to stop it.
No.
Any particular event happened that's in your memory during the Battle of the Bulge or going on to France?
Well, there's a lot of them, but I don't recall right now
Sure.
any certain one. It was a terrible time.
When you were on the 50 caliber machine gun, did any of the Nazis get around you? Were you able to stop them?
Oh, sometimes they did, but we were pretty much able to stop them from getting around. 50 calibers, they call it a peacemaker. That shell will travel 3 miles, and we had plenty of ammunition. I managed to keep boxes and boxes of ammunition in the truck that I hauled my machine gun on, and in the daytime it would be up on a platform so you could swing it around and fire at planes.
Any particular incident when you landed on France? I mean, the fighting was close by. How'd you keep from being shelled when you first landed in France?
Well, sometimes it takes you a while to keep from being shelled. We took a few shells, but we had so much power. The Germans didn't have that much, and we pretty much run over them.
Did your outfit take any prisoners of war then?
Oh yes, a lot of them.
And where'd you have to take them to?
Some military police would come and pick them up and take to some facility,
Okay.
wherever they were taking them in, you know.
Did they give up pretty easy then?
No,
Oh.
never gave up easy.
Okay, what am I missing?
Something else happened I should let the people know about. Christmas Eve, a troop ship came from England to reinforce the men fighting in the Bulge. It was sunk right off the coast of France, near Cherbourg, France. And there was a very poor rescue attempt because there weren't many army facilities in Cherbourg, France yet, and there was no rescue boat came along with them. So that ship was sunk, and all 6,000 men that were due to go to the Battle of the Bulge drowned. Very few of them were rescued. And myself and a couple of my foxhole buddies from New York went back in 1994 to go on the Trail of Tears. And coming back, we visited the huge American cemetery on the coast of France. And I have a book on it somewhere. There's 4 or 5 sets of brothers and 2 sets of fathers and sons and nurses buried there. And on the front of the cemetery there was a wall with the name of, I believe it was 300 or 400 men that said they were missing in action. And I knew there was not that many men missing in action in any confrontation in World War II where I was. And I wondered about that. So I talked to the superintendent of the cemetery. He spoke good English. But he says, you men were confined in ever speaking about it at the time. December 1st, 1944, Christmas Eve. He says, but I can talk about it. He told me about that ship was sunk there. And just before the battle, the D-Day battle, just before the huge forces landed in France, they had the American Army, the English and French, had a what they call it?
Reunion?
Pardon?
Had a reunion?
Reunion of how that would take place, or a practice battle, duplicating what was going to take place
Reenactment
in France a month later. And the Nazi E-boats got into that convoy right off Slapton Sands. The name of it was Slapton Sands, England, and killed 700 American Navy, Army, Coast Guard, and quite a few English. And all those men were buried in a single grave, well, you know, buried in a grave that didn't cause much publicity, and along with the men from that ship that was sunk, whatever they could find. And we went back there in 1944 to look things over.
What year? 92? You went back?
1994.
94, okay.
And there's when I found out about that, and that information was not released in the United States until 1998 as to what happened to those 500 men.
500 or 5,000?
Pardon?
500 or 5,000?
500.
Okay.
Very irregular, and few people were rescued. And also the 700 men that died in that rehearsal of the D-Day landing. They were all buried in a grave. No search.
Yeah. No
services, no notices sent out, and that too was not completely noted until 1998.
Now, what is
and I happened to have the TV on when it was told by the War Department what happened to those people. And before that, I called the Pentagon and tried to get an answer. They didn't know anything about it. Played innocent until 1998, and at that time, most of the surviving fathers and mothers and other relatives would be dead.
Why did they call it the Trail of Tears?
Oh, I and my buddy called it.
Oh.
The Trail of Tears, because of
No, you went.
horrible things that went on.
And where was this trail? In France?
Pardon?
Where was the trail at?
Well, we started in France and
Okay.
went through 7 countries.
Okay.
We just dubbed it our trip, the Trail of Tears. But we found out a lot of information.
Have you been back there since?
No, we went back in 1994 and never went back since. I haven't personally. Maybe some of the fellows have, but I don't know about them.
When you went back, you went to France, Normandy, or where?
We went pretty much the same way that we did during the war, from the coast of France through 7 countries, all the way to Czechoslovakia, where the war ended May 8th, 1945. And by finding out about those men that all drowned on that ship, and the rehearsal for the battle of the invasion of France in June 6, 1944, kept as quiet as could be. I didn't know anything about it, and the American public didn't know about it. That's how good the American public. Well, it was better that way, you know. They didn't want the enemy to know how bad that was. Well, we could have used those men in the Battle of the Bulge that died on that ship. That's where they were headed for, you know. December, Christmas Eve, no, December 1, 1944.
Is there anything that I missed that you want to talk about?
Oh,
Can't think of all the questions.
I could think of thousands of things, but it'd take you all day.
Well, you try one or two on me. I'm a good listener.
Yeah. I went back to Washington, D.C. on an honor flight. You heard about them?
Yes, I did.
I went back there. And I wanted to get an interview with our United States Senator, Bob Dole, because he made every honor flight from anywhere in the United States. And I wanted to talk to Bob Dole. Well, he came into the crowd of maybe 1,000 people, and I saw him from a long ways away. And I thought, I'm going to holler just as loud as I can to get him to come over there before he starts interviewing other people or whatnot. And I hollered, I'm glad you're here, Mr. United States Senator Robert Dole. I want to show you a picture I took out of the Bemidji Pioneer. I think he came through the crowd just to shut me up. He came right through, and you can see him in the top picture, that long one.
Okay.
And we talked for 15 minutes until all the pictures were taken, and then he had to go. And I told him, I says, I remember your wife was the commander of the United States Red Cross. Oh, he says she is yet. I says, well, greet her too. That's a heck of a job to round up enough volunteers to help in those awful tragedies that happen, like down on the coast, southern coast, of that fire and hurricane, and any other system they had to go through. And I believe that he was one of the most honorable senators we ever had. And I told him, I said, Mr. United States Senator Bob Dole, you ran against I can't
remember either.
Pardon?
I remember, but I don't know who he ran against. I forgot. What'd you say about being surrounded? Who was surrounded?
The 101st American Airborne Troops were surrounded in that area. And the first ones to break through was General Patton and his troop, 3rd Army. And I was in the 4th Armored Division, 4th Armored Division, attached to the 4th Armored Division. And we broke through and released they were being supplied by air drops for food and ammunition during that time. And I never in my life saw so many empty cartridges that they had fired during that month they were surrounded and firing on the Germans. I congratulate you on your job of interviewing.
Needs to be done.
Yes.
Now, I missed part of that. You said there was the 101st was surrounded or something?
The United States 101st Airborne Division was surrounded in the Bastogne area for, I'm not sure how long they were surrounded, but they were out of ammunition and out of food and everything else, and I never saw so many empty shell cases from the big cannon in my life. They, you know, but we were nearby, and Patton says he's going to liberate them. So he did. And my unit was one of them, the first ones that went in.